Hi lovely people, good day and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, you're welcome. My name is Oluwatosin, and to all my returning subscribers, you're also welcome. In case you are new here, please consider subscribing to my channel and don't just subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you get notified when next I upload new video on this channel. In today's tutorial, you are going to be learning how to cut and sew this cute and adorable Ankara jumpsuit that you are currently seeing on your screen. I actually made this jumpsuit for a child that is 9 years old. I made for two sisters. One is 9 and the other one is 4 years old. And basically, if you are to sew this jumpsuit for an adult, they are like the same process. It's just little alteration here and there in the measurements and all of that. This is what the back of this jumpsuit is looking like. This jumpsuit comes with an elastic on the leg, as you can see. It comes with an inseam pocket and there are two belts on each side just to adjust it to whatever your measurement is. The reason for putting these two belts is to adjust the jumpsuit to your body size after wearing it. Now, this tutorial is a very detailed and comprehensive tutorial on how to cut and sew this jumpsuit, and it is a very lengthy video. I had to break it into two parts because after editing it was over 20 minutes. I had to break it into two parts because I don't want to skip some parts that I'm not supposed to skip, because I want to make this video as beginner friendly as possible. So this video is going to come in part 1 and in part 2, like A and B, but it's not going to be like A will be the cutting video and then B will be the sewing tutorial, because this jumpsuit I was sewing as I was cutting. So it's just going to come in part A and then part B. Part A will cover a little bit of cutting and sewing to an extent, and part B will cover the rest of the cutting and sewing. So if you would love to see the whole process of cutting and sewing this jumpsuit from the beginning till the end, you might have to watch the part 2 of it after watching this part 1. That being said, let's jump right into the tutorial. So here is the beautiful African print that I used for this project, and here are the basic measurements you need to measure to achieve a jumpsuit like this. The first thing we'll be doing is to bring out the half length, and to bring out the half length, you're going to be considering the bust, and then you'll be adding 8 inches allowance. This 8 inches covers allowance for sewing and then for zip. You fold that into 4, leaving zip allowance at the back. For the half length, because this jumpsuit has a band that is going to be 1.5 inches wide, I put the 1.5 inch up. As you can see, I measured the half length and then I added 1.5 inch allowance to it. The next thing is to divide our shoulder by 2. I'm not going to be adding allowance to the shoulder because this jumpsuit doesn't have a sleeve. After that, you mark a armhole divided by 2, a bust divided by 4, a waistline divided by 4. I came back to the neckline. They are both round neck, front and back. I used neck width of 6, on fold of 2, I marked 3, the neck depth of 3 at the front and 1 at the back. I proceeded to cutting the neckline. I opened up the zip allowance, I cut out the armhole, and then I cut out the shaping. The next after this is to cut the trouser part of the jumpsuit. So to do this, my fabric is not on fold. I just placed it on the table. To know the exact quantity I'll be folding, I'm going to be dividing our hip by 4 first. I'll mark that. After this, I'll be adding 1.5 inch sewing allowance from that point where I marked initially. I'll be marking 1.5 inch. The next is to mark 2 inches allowance for extending the crouch after the 1.5 inch. Now, depending on how wide or how much pleat you want, in my case, I used 2.5 inches for a pleat. So I'll go ahead to mark additional 2.5 inch. This point is where I will stop my marking and then fold my fabric into 2 at that point. I hope that is clear. We are cutting for the front panel of the trouser parts of the jumpsuit first. After successfully marking out the quantity of fabric we need to cut this front panel, I'll proceed to figuring out the length. I'll put a half length up just like I did. I'll mark a full length and then I'm going to be adding 2.5 inches to this full length. The next thing to do is to come back to where you marked, and then you are going to be marking a crouch. Our front crouch is 8, our back crouch is 10, but I'm going to be considering 10 first. So I marked 10 downward. On that point where I marked the crouch, I marked her hip divided by 4, then 2 inches for extending the crouch, 2.5 inches for my pleat, and what is remaining is the 1.5 inch that is going to be sewing allowance. The next thing to do is to come back to the waistline, mark our waist divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch sewing allowance, and then 2.5 inches for the pleat. Now draw your crouch line, and from the crouch line measure 1 inch downward. On that point, divide our thigh by 2, then you'll be adding 1.5 inch allowance for sewing and 2.5 inches allowance for your pleat. Then you measure what you marked and then deduct 1.5 inch allowance there and mark that at the whole length, the full length of the jumpsuit, that's around the ankle. This is because elastic is going to pass through that place, so you need excess fabric to gather. After this, proceed to cutting out your front panel. After cutting out the front panel, I'll place it on another fabric that is on fold of 2, and then I'll be leaving 1.5 inch at the back. This is because I'm sewing for somebody that is 9 years old. If you are sewing for an adult, you should use 2 or 2.5. Then this is like to create more room for the butt. But the main place I need this 1.5 inch is around the butt. So somewhere around the waistline, I'm going to be using 1 inch, and towards the ankle side, the leg side, I'll be using 1 inch as well. You can see that the 1.5 inch allowance is obvious around the butt region. The next thing to do is to deduct 2 inches from the front crouch. Like I said, a front crouch is 8 and then 10 for the back. So I'm just going to mark it like this and cut it out. After cutting it out like this, at the front, I'll be reducing it with 1 inch at this crouch region where I'm reducing it. And that is it for the trouser part of the jumpsuit. I just cut this out. I'll be using it to pipe the neckline and also the armhole. What I'm supposed to do next is to cut out the pleat that goes from the front to the back, but I cannot do that when I've not joined the shoulder line. That was why I said in this video I'm going to be cutting and be sewing as we go. So to join the shoulder line, right side has to face right side for front and back. I'll be joining the 2 shoulder lines first. When I'm done joining, I'll pipe the neckline all together from back to the front and then to the back. Then I'll pipe the armhole together from back to the front. When I was done doing that, this is what it's looking like. I piped it from inside to outside. You can as well do from outside to the inside, depends on your preference. So the next thing to do is to figure out where the pleat is going to be. To do this, firstly I located the midpoint of the front panel. Then after locating the midpoint on the waistline, I marked our actual measurement. On the bust region as well, I located the midpoint so that I can mark our actual bust. Then after marking the actual bust, I went back to the waistline and then I marked where I want the frills to be. So from the shaping on the sides, I want the frills or pleats to be 2 inches away from the shaping on both sides. So from my actual measurement that I marked earlier, I went towards the middle with 2 inches and then I marked on both sides. Then I connected this to the shoulder line, from the waistline to the shoulder line on both sides. So I'm going to be marking at the back as well so that I can just mark out the line at this point, so that when I get to my sewing machine, it's just to sew my pleat directly on the line. I hope what I'm trying to explain is clear. So after marking, I'll proceed to measuring how wide the pleat is going to be. So I marked for front and back, and then I want definitely the pleat is going to cover the shoulder line and then the arm. So it's going to cover the armhole a bit. So it's going to be 3 inches wide, but I need allowance for folding the pleat itself. So I marked 4 inches, and then I measured the length on the front. You know, whatever I measured has to be multiplied by 2 for front and back. And then because I want it to have pleats, I did times 3 of what I measured. That's when I measured for front, I multiplied it by 2 first and then multiplying by 3 again so that I can have enough to pleat. And you know, our pleating is not going to start from like where the half length stops, because the pleating is not going to enter the band. So I just went upward with like ½ inch before measuring. I hope that's clear. Now I proceeded to cutting. This is the piece I'll be using for the pleats. I just cuffed it at the edge because, as you can see from the initial video or from the video of this jumpsuit itself, at that part is not completely straight, it's cuffed. I can just put a picture of it somewhere so that you can understand what I'm trying to say. So the first thing to do is to fold it a bit at the tip from one side to the other. After this, when I say fold, I mean stitch at the tip of the fabric you are using as the pleating. After this, notch the middle of it, fold it into two, share it into two and notch the middle, or you can just mark the middle. After marking the middle, you are going to pin that middle down on your shoulder line so that you can equally share it between the front and the back panel. You can now start making your pleats. Don't forget to leave like half inch or 1 inch before you start. This is the allowance that you'll be using to attach the band to the half length. I hope that's clear. So I proceeded to making my pleat from back to front, and then this is what it's looking like when I was done. After that, you are going to neatly match your pleat on the right side. So I matched it on the right side, and for now this is where part 1 is going to stop. So in case part 2 is the first video you'll be coming across, just know that there's a part 1 to this video and it's just the video before the part 2 you are watching. And in case you've been with me from beginning till this point, please know that there's a part 2 to this video. And for the part 2, I'm not going to be making any form of introduction. I'll just go straight to where we stopped in the part 1. So thank you so much for watching. I hope someone found this video helpful and interesting. If it has been helpful to you, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you've not subscribed, kindly do and turn on the notification bell so you get notified when I upload new video on this channel. And in case you have any question at all, do not forget that the comment section is always open to your questions. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.